Hi there, welcome back for Virtual CurveFest Body Lovin 2013 edition. This is session 2. So session 2 is intentions versus resolutions. Committing to change with love, not loathing. So hopefully you did session 1 first, but I know there's probably some rebels out there who are just starting in with session 2, which is totally fine. Just to give you a little recap of where we've been and a preview of where we're going in session 3. In session 1, we really did a lot of connection with the body. So we thought about what you wanted to get out of this workshop, Virtual CurveFest Body Lovin 2013. And we did some movement on the breath. So giving the mind something to focus on as you move the body. Moving on the breath in order to warm up the body and really move in a way that works for your body, because when you are moving deliberately, you're able to get a better sense of where it's really safe for your body to be today. And that's something that I really like to emphasize, that our bodies do change from day to day. That's not always a really dramatic change, but say, for example, you spent more time on the computer yesterday than you normally do. When you come to your yoga practice today, you may find that you have a little more tightness in your shoulders or your neck, or maybe even in your arms if you were typing a lot. So just noticing these subtle shifts that really do affect your practice can help you stay practicing for a long time, because ultimately that's our goal, right? I mean, at least for me, that's my goal. I want to be able to practice for the rest of my life, however long that may be, in a way that really works for me. And that means that my yoga practice will change, and that's okay. Not only is it okay, it's to be expected. Like, that is what is true for all of us. So I know for those of us who may have been practicing for a while, it can be easy to lament, oh, I used to be able to do this, or I used to be able to do that. For example, I started practicing yoga when I was 18. Could I do different things then than I can now? Yes. Almost 14, 15 years later, my body doesn't do all the same things. Some things it does better, some things it does worse. You know, it's not really about this continuum of good to bad, better to worse. You know, being able to do a certain thing makes you a better yogi, but really about meeting your body in this moment, and that is what it means to be a yogi. It's saying, what's my body doing and how can I support it? So in that first session, we did a centering and really connected with the body, asked what it was feeling, what it wanted, how we could meet those needs. And that is something that can serve you not only in your yoga practice, but also in the rest of your life, which, you know, it's all our yoga practice, but our yoga practice on the mat versus our yoga practice off of the mat. So that was session 1. This session 2, we're going to be talking, like I said, about intentions versus resolutions, and I'm going to be walking you through a process, which is the process that I went through myself late in 2012 to sort of set my intention for 2013. And then in session 3, we're going to kind of wrap it all up. So we're going to do some movement based on what your body's asking for. It'll be a little bit different than what we did in session 1. We'll do some restorative yoga, and then we're going to do a closing ceremony to really concretize and connect with whatever intention comes forward for you for the year during this second session. So that's a preview and a reminder of where we've been and where we're going. So I want to start just by this, thinking about this question of intentions versus resolutions. So I wish that we were just kind of sitting together having tea and you could tell me what the difference is to you if you experience a difference. But since we're not, I'm going to share some of what that means to me and also what I've kind of heard from some other people. So for me, a resolution in the past has been something very change focused and usually oriented around some kind of like perfect ideal version of myself that I hope will come true and preferably in like half an hour. I think like my logical mind says, oh, this will take a year, but in my heart I'm like, hopefully it'll take a week, you know? So that might be things like losing weight for sure, and that's a hard one to get away from this time of year. Losing weight, working out, getting more healthy, you know, all these sort of like nebulous code words that oftentimes mean losing weight, although they don't always. But what they have in common to me is in a sort of an outside imposition on what I think my body should be doing, looking like, experiencing, etc. And so I don't want you to hear me say that any of those things are bad. I don't think that's true. I do not believe that. What I believe is that a lot of times resolutions are made by our minds without consulting our bodies. So our mind says we need to lose weight, look younger, drink green juice every day because we read it in a book, saw it on TV, heard it from our friend down the street, you know, etc., etc. What we skip over a lot of times, for many of us at least, is checking in with our body and saying, does this feel good to me? In what way does this feel good to me? How could I do this in such a way that my body will go along? You know, that I'm not going to encounter resistance after resistance. And that is where the sort of myth of the New Year's resolution comes in, I think, because I think we all sort of know as a culture, in some ways at least, that people give up their New Year's resolutions pretty quickly. I think that's why I was just hearing something the other day about how if you belong to a gym, you know, these first couple weeks of January are such a difficult time to go. Like the parking lot is packed and you can't get into a class or a machine or whatever. But if you wait like 2 weeks, I think they said, but maybe, you know, maybe generously 3 or 4, like it's cool. Like, you know, you have your spaciousness back. There's way less people. So there is this understanding that a resolution is something that we wish would happen in this like moment of the new year and transition. But in reality, once we get into it, we're like, you know, life comes up. We get busy. We have to stay late at work. Our kid gets sick. We don't feel well, etc., etc., etc. Resolution is forgotten. So I would say that's sort of my understanding of resolutions, that they're almost coming from a place of something that we perceive as wrong with us, that we think we need to change, and we think we want to change. So that's Anna's take on resolutions. And so the shift that's happened for me is thinking about an intention versus a resolution. And of course, this is not like, you know, something that I invented. It's just something that I've experimented with in my life and seen the results of. So when I made this shift, and it really does, like I can feel it almost on an energetic level when I check in with my body. Resolution for me has a little bit of a like a tightening and amping up, that kind of energy. And an intention to me feels really like expansive and connected, and I feel more of a like dropping in, not in a like down, depressed kind of way, but like a stable kind of way. Like, okay, I can stay with this intention, and even though there will like for sure be a lot of time that I'm not thinking about it or I disconnect from it, I can come back to it. And that to me is the idea behind an intention. It's something that frames the year and something that's not coming from that place of wrongness, not enoughness, needing to change, but rather this is how I want to live my year. And I know that it's something that will ebb and flow. It has more flexibility than a resolution. So to me, a resolution is oftentimes very quantified. So like, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week for 90 minutes. You know, it's usually something kind of intense. And an intention might be, I want to feel good. You know, keep it simple. I want to feel open. Now, what is nice about that is it has so much room to breathe. What can be difficult about it sometimes is that it feels a little abstract. So what does that really mean? I want to feel good, open, free. And that's what we're going to explore a little bit, is figuring out, number one, what an intention might be for you. And then number two, how you can take a 365-day exploration into what that means, knowing that there will be times you're connected with it, times you're not as connected with it, and that that's all okay. I think what matters less than what you actually choose for your intention is the place that you choose it from. And so the other part of what we're talking about today is choosing from that place of love rather than loathing. And I think that goes right into that whole conversation about change that's external, that is coming from a place of us being wrong, versus this place of acceptance of where we are and breathing into what we want in the future in a gentle, soft, warm, welcoming, whatever word you want to use, kind of place. So what I'm going to do is talk through, I'm going to share some other people's perspectives on this issue. I'm going to talk about what I see in yoga philosophy that can inform and guide us. And then I'm going to step you through a process to see what comes forward for you. So to start that, I'm going to share a quote from Gil Headley, who is this guy who does a lot of really interesting work around anatomy. And his work has informed some yoga teachers around how the body works and moves. And he's particularly well known for his infamous YouTube video on the fascia. And the fascia is this sort of like, I think like cobweb is a nice way to explain it. It really encapsulates our muscles and our organs and is throughout our whole body. And he shows how this is like such an intricate part of the body that few of us are aware of, and that there's a lot of theories that this like houses our energy body. And I say all that just to kind of give him a little introduction because I think that he does great work around like how much the body has to teach us about not only how we feel in our physical body, but a much broader experience as well. So here's the quote that I wanted to share from him. If you were to let the charge of life run through your body a bit more freely, if you were to contain it a little less steadfastly, would you be able to endure it? It actually takes practice to tolerate a higher volume of this life juice flowing through you. This is not an effortful practice, but quite the opposite. It involves lowering your various types of established resistance. It's okay to put letting go and feeling really good on your list of things to do. I just have to feel like I have to give that an exhale. Like it feels like it really resonates for me on a deep level. This idea that it's okay. It's okay to let those things be at the top of what you value, feeling good, letting go. These are not things that we're traditionally taught are okay to even engage in at all, much less to make a priority. And I like how he ties that to the body. So I thought that was a nice kind of transition into the rest of our conversation. All right, I'm going to take a little swig of water here. So I wanted to start with yoga because that's what we're talking about. And yoga, if you are not aware of this, is an 8-limbed path, an 8-fold path. And yoga asana, or the poses, is just one of those 8 components. So many of us are introduced to yoga through the poses, and many of us may only be aware of that part of yoga. But I think it's nice to think about all 8 of the components, which I'm just going to very briefly touch on here. I gave a longer talk on this in the first virtual CurveFest in 2012, which you're welcome to check out. Then I'm also doing a series about it on my blog, so you can check that out and stay tuned for the rest, because I think that the path is really a path of body acceptance. So I'm just going to briefly, like I said, touch on the 8 different components of the path. The first one is the yamas. So number 1 and number 2 of the 8 limbs are yamas and niyamas, which are an ethical system, a philosophical approach to yoga, really off the mat. So the yamas are ahimsa, or nonviolence, compassion. And I cannot say how much I love that this is like 1.1 on the yoga path, compassion, nonviolence. To me, this is everything we've been talking about. Not over pushing yourself, not over efforting, like Gil shared in that quote, or I shared, I guess, from Gil. Just coming from that place of real care. That's a nice thing to come back to. This is what yoga is giving us from the get-go. The second yama is satya, or truth. The third is asteya, or not stealing. The fourth is brahmacharya, sense control. The fifth is aparigraha, not grasping. So without going super deep into all of that, I would say that what I kind of get from that is a drawing in and a listening. What's coming up? What's coming from my intuition? What's coming from my body? How can I stay present with that, truthful to that, and not reaching out to all these external things, not grasping, not taking from other people, staying really like right here. Second limb, niyamas. These are satya, or purity, santosha, or contentment, tapas, which is the sort of disciplined use of energy, svadhyaya, or self-study, and ishvara pranidhana, which is a celebration of the spiritual and a kind of a surrender. It's the let go and let God of yoga in whatever way that means to you. So again, I think this just kind of reinforces what we just talked about in terms of what's true for you, really using that svadhyaya to check in and figure that out, and letting go. The third limb is asana, or the yoga poses like we talked about. The fourth is pranayama, which is sometimes translated as breath control. I prefer to think about it in terms of using the breath like we did in our first session. So moving with the breath, counting the breath, using the breath as a tool for transformation. The next one is pratyahara, or withdrawal of the senses. Another way to think about that might be mindfulness, coming into the moment. The next two are dharana, concentration, and dhyana, meditation. And the last one is samadhi, which is often considered enlightenment. So I think what's kind of most important for the purposes of our conversation in this moment is that the Eightfold Path is taking us like deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper inside our own experience. So it's not taking us out, as our culture often does, to say, what's the latest diet book saying? What's this celebrity saying? What's happening on this TV show? What did my, uncles, best friends, cousins, neighbors, dentists say? Like, however we sort of get this information, yoga is saying, what is happening inside, and how can I stay with that, stay really present, kind of no matter what's happening on the outside. Another thing I wanted to bring in from yoga is from the Yoga Sutras 1.1 through 1.4. So if you're not familiar with the Yoga Sutras, this is sort of little aphorisms that teach us about the yogic path, and that is really the Eightfold Path that we just talked about. And there are so many different translations of the Yoga Sutras, and people like different ones for different reasons. The Yoga Sutras are said to be written by someone named Patanjali. And I'm going to share two translations for each of these first four Yoga Sutras that I really like. So the first one is from Mukunda Styles translation. So if you're interested in looking that up, if you just like Google it or go to Amazon and just look for Mukunda Styles, which is Mukunda Styles, Stiles, you'll find that translation of the Yoga Sutras. And then the other one is from The Secret Power of Yoga by Nishla Joy Devi. So Mukunda Styles I have on my iPad, so it wasn't as easy to show you, but this one I have as a paper copy. And the subtitle of this book is A Woman's Guide to the Heart and Spirit of the Yoga Sutras. So what I like about both this translation and Mukunda Styles' translation is they feel really accessible to me. Like I'm able to connect with it on a level like, oh, this makes sense to me in my life. It doesn't feel, I don't know, as like distant or esoteric as some translations. So again, that's my personal preference. That's what I'm going to share. But there are lots of good translations, and I personally like looking across lots of different translations. I probably have like 6 or 8 over on my bookshelf, and I was like, I'm going to share all the translations. Then I was just like, that's going to take our whole hour if I just read all that. So I just decided to choose 2 for our time together. So we're going to start with 1.1, and we're going to go Mukunda Styles, Nishla Joy Devi, just because that's how I decided to do it, no reason. All right, so first translation. With great respect and love, now the blessings of yoga instruction are offered. And the other translation of that one, with humility, an open heart and mind, we embrace the sacred study of yoga. So after I read each of these, I'm just going to let us sit for a moment and absorb them. What I really like about how the Yoga Sutras opens with this is it's saying we're coming to our practice with a level of reverence for what has come before us, how everyone has experienced the lineage of yoga through all the different teachings and teachers and students and practices, and reverence for our own life. 1.2, first translation. Yoga is experienced in that mind which has ceased to identify itself with its vacillating waves of perception. I think maybe I'll repeat that one. It's a little bit, you gotta let it sink in. Yoga is experienced in that mind which has ceased to identify itself with its vacillating waves of perception. Next translation. Yoga is the uniting of consciousness in the heart. Yoga is the uniting of consciousness in the heart. And I'm going to come back to all of these and share a little bit about what they mean for me. I just wanted to get just a couple translations out there first. 1.3, first translation. When this happens, then the seer is revealed, resting in its own essential nature, and one realizes the true self. Again, when this happens, then the seer is revealed, resting in its own essential nature, and one realizes the true self. Second translation. United in the heart, consciousness is steadied. Then we abide in our true nature, joy. I'll repeat that. United in the heart, consciousness is steadied. Then we abide in our true nature, joy. Last one, 1.4, first translation. At all other times, the self appears to assume the form of thoughts, vacillations, and the true self is lost. One more time. At all other times, the self appears to assume the form of thoughts, vacillations, and the true self is lost. Second translation. At other times, we identify with the rays of consciousness, which fluctuate and encourage our perceived suffering. One more time. At other times, we identify with the rays of consciousness, which fluctuate and encourage our perceived suffering. So again, I would love to hear your thoughts on those first 4 Yoga Sutras. And you are definitely welcome to shoot me an email if you feel so compelled. But what I'd like to do is just share a little bit about what those mean to me and how I think those inform our conversation about body acceptance and body love in a new year and what yoga has to teach us. So what I really get from those first 4 Yoga Sutras is what I mentioned earlier. There's a reverence that we're approaching yoga with. And then what it's saying to me is we're often encouraged to identify with everything happening outside of us. So all the things we've already talked about, in addition to our past and our belief system and our values, and that's not good or bad. That's just kind of what is. And what yoga, I think, is inviting us to do is draw in and identify with what is true for us. So when we get quiet, when we get still, when we have moved our body through yoga asana or the yoga poses in order to drop into this more connected state, what comes up for us? Like what comes up independent of this, that, the other? And that's not to say that we exist in a vacuum. Certainly not. I think the community is such an important part of all of our lives and how we decide to live them. But really coming from a place of our internal truth. So I would like to share one more quote in regards to yoga and what it has to teach us. Well, it has lots to teach us, and I couldn't do it all in an hour. But this is kind of what I've chosen to frame the conversation. And this is a quote from BKS Iyengar, who some of you may know of, the founder of the Iyengar yoga system. So he says, "The decision to relax rather than to grip, even in the face of impatience or fear, is a conscious and brave choice." I just love that, don't you? Oh, the decision to relax rather than to grip, even in the face of impatience or fear, is a conscious and brave choice. So, of course, we're not talking about moments where your life is threatened. Of course, fight or flight is going to come in then. But in those moments where we go into fight or flight, when it's our everyday stress, and we can make a decision to relax, that I think is a beautiful invitation and can help us inform how we want to feel during this new year. All right, like I said, I wanted to touch on a couple other philosophies, ideas related to this subject. So the first is health at every size, which some of you may be familiar with. And what I really like about health at every size is that it's really about accepting and respecting the natural diversity of body sizes and shapes. So it does not predetermine what a body has to look like in order to feel good, to be healthy, etc. It really says that's going to be different for all of us. And the best that we can do, the best way we can sort of respect ourselves and live our lives, is to figure out what that means for us and then honor that truth. And I mean, how much does that sound like what we just talked about with yoga? A lot, right? Like it's saying, what's true for you, going back to what we talked about, yamas and niyamas, truthfulness, and how can you honor that? It also values eating in a flexible manner, moving in a way that feels joyful, and just really coming from that place of connection and what feels good. I'm friends with Rachel Cole. Some of you may know her work. She's at rachelwcole.com, and she just does amazing work around hunger and what that really means on a deep level. And so I wanted to share with you part of a piece that she wrote in 2012 called Primary Hungers. And so if you look on her site, I think you can Google that or search for it or something and find it, but I'm going to read a part of it. And so Rachel starts with a question: what are you truly hungry for? And then she continues, no, really. I know I ask this question of you a lot. But please pause, breathe, ask it again. What is it you are truly hungry for? Emphasis on the truly. Here are a few things I hear from women. Weight loss, 1,000 more readers for my blog, date night with my husband. There's nothing wrong with these desires, but they aren't what I call true hungers. These are secondary hungers. True hungers are primal and can be fed in many ways, not just through the single door of the secondary hunger we may have identified. In fact, this is why so many women are hungry. They go to feed the secondary hunger without addressing the core primary hunger and are often left unsatiated because the secondary hunger isn't what they want after all. For example, if a woman desires for weight loss, her primary hunger may be to feel good in her body or to feel vital or for companionship if she believes weight loss is a prerequisite. The primary hunger below a desire for weight loss can be a multitude of things. And importantly, she can feed the primary hunger without, in this example, ever losing weight. She's good, right? So the reason I wanted to share that section of Rachel's piece, Primary Hungers, is because I think it's another way to say intention. So when we're thinking about an intention for the year, another way to think about it is what's the primary hunger for your year and how can you meet that, which may not look like a specific action like go to the gym 5 times, work out 90 minutes each time like we talked about a second ago. For the past year or so, maybe year and a half, a really good friend of mine here in Nashville, we've been meeting up about once a week and we practice yoga and we just kind of talk about our lives and see what unfolds from there. And we have called our time together the Feel Good Lab. And I wrote about that a little bit in my posts on Roots of She. So if you're interested, you could look that up on my site or on the Roots of She site. Welcome to the Feel Good Lab and the Discipline of Feeling Good were the pieces that I wrote. And what I've really learned from my time with my friend is the value of making feeling good a priority in your life. So coming from this place of primary hunger, of intention, of feeling good is an expansive thing, and it is so connected to body acceptance and body love. It's saying I'm giving myself the space to figure out what that means and not predetermine it before I've given myself a chance to experience it. The last way that I wanted to share that this can be talked about is through something from Danielle Laporte, who some of you may also know. She's at the website daniellelaporte.com. And she has this idea that she calls core desired feelings. And this is sort of started in her book, The Firestarter Sessions, and then is explored further in her newest offering, The Desire Map. And here's what she has to say about this topic. Knowing how you actually want to feel is the most potent form of clarity that you can have. Generating those feelings is the most powerfully creative thing you can do with your life. And not only do we have to put our feelings at the heart of our ambitions, we have to pursue our desires in a way that's life-affirming rather than soul-depleting. Rigid goal chasing is burning us out. Soul-anchored intentions are the way to get home. And I don't know how that idea of rigid goal chasing is burning us out lands with you, but for me, I just feel like a yes, that has been me, and I can see my tendency to go there even still. So my thought behind sharing these different perspectives, from yoga philosophy to health at every size to some people who I respect their work, Rachel Cole and Danielle Laporte and Gil Headley, is to say there are a lot of different people exploring this in different ways, and to bring us back to this system of yoga, which has been kind of an underpinning for this idea, although maybe not in the same words that we'd use today, for a long time, and that yoga can and will bring us back to this time and time and time again if we allow it to, both through the yoga asana and through the Eightfold Path. So this is where we're going to get into the juicy stuff of what's coming forward for you. So like I said, this is what I've done in my personal intention practice, and I'm just going to guide you through it now. So if you have a pencil and paper or pen or, whatever you like, grab that. I think writing this down, like having that physical process, is an important part of what we're doing. So of course you can type out your answers, but I think this is a nice time to get a lovely journal and a pen you love and get ready. So this is a video. You can hit pause, go grab your stuff, come back. That's fine. Once you're back and ready to go, come into a comfortable seated position. So this does not have to be what we did in session 1, like a very aligned sort of yoga position. If you want to curl up on a couch, on a beanbag chair, do people still have those? I don't know. Anywhere that you feel like you're going to be able to sit comfortably, not have to fidget a ton, and can write easily, that's where I want you to be. So get yourself into that position. Again, you can hit pause, come back, that's fine. And then when you're ready, we're going to start by connecting with the breath. So before we do that, I'll just tell you a little bit about what the process is going to be. So what the process is going to be is I'm going to step you through breath work, questions. Once I put forward a question, I'm going to ask you to just sit and breathe with it. So we're going to use the same skill that you used in session 1, where we listened to the body, we asked for a response, and then we responded to that question, need, desire, etc. So we'll ask our body to come forward with something in response to the question, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of time to journal around that question, and then we'll repeat that process, and we'll wrap up at the end with some thoughts on how to integrate what's come forward. Okay, so we'll start with the breath. And we'll start with just 3 deep breaths. Inhaling at your own pace, exhaling at your own pace. You might like to sigh out the breath here. After your 3rd exhale, we're going to do 5 more deep breaths, lengthening the exhale. So if you did session 1, you've done this before. How it works is you're going to inhale and just count your breaths. You inhale, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4. Whatever the count is, doesn't matter. It might be 1, 1, 2. It might go up to 4 and down to 5. However long it is fine. It does not matter. You're just inhaling to your natural count, exhaling 1 beat further. So we'll do that 4 more times at your own pace. You're welcome to close the eyes if that feels okay for you. Whenever you're done with that 4th exhale, you can slowly open the eyes. And we'll move into our question and response time. So first question is, what do I most need this year? What do I most need this year? And before you put pen to paper, I invite you to close your eyes. Do 3 deep breaths, asking yourself this question. Just see if and what comes up first. After your third exhale, you can put that pen to paper. I'm going to give you about 1.5 minutes. Just let yourself free write. Anything that comes up, no matter how ridiculous or absurd it seems. Write. And see if you can write this whole time. We're not looking for a right answer. We're not looking for a perceived outcome. We're just letting the body and the intuition speak. About 10 more seconds on this question. And of course, if you need or want more time, you can always pause and take that. If not, wrap up on this question and we'll move to the next. So as we do, let's all take a breath together, inhaling, exhaling, sighing it out. Kind of shaking off that question as we move into the next. Next question is, what do I most want this year? What do I most want this year? Same process as before. Close the eyes if that's okay, or just find something to focus your attention on with your eyes open. 3 deep breaths. Let the question sink in. After your third exhale, 1.5 minutes of writing. Go ahead. About 10 more seconds here. And then we'll take a breath, exhaling out a sigh. Next question. How can I show my body love this year? How can I show my body love this year? Again, we'll go 3 deep breaths, let the body speak. After your third exhale, We'll write a minute and a half. And go 10 more seconds with this. And when you're ready, we'll take that deep breath, exhaling a sigh. Next question. How can yoga play a role in my body love this year? How can yoga play a role in my body love this year? You know what to do. 3 deep breaths. And then you'll write for a minute and a half. Okay, 10 more seconds with this question. When you're ready, you'll do your exhaling sigh breath. Next question, we just have 2 more. What one word is coming forward as an intention or feeling for the new year? What one word is coming forward as an intention or feeling for the new year? 3 breaths, then you write. Maybe that you get a list of words and you circle back to the one that feels strongest later. Just go with whatever comes up. We'll go 10 more seconds with this one. And then you can do your sighing breath. And now, last question. Does my body have any more messages for me in this moment? Or what message does my body have for me in this moment? Close your eyes, 3 deep breaths. And then you write for 1.5 minutes. 10 more seconds on this one. And then one more sighing breath. You can shift around in your chair or your couch, wherever you are. Make any movements that would feel good. Whew. The reason we worked this process where we had a question, we asked our body, and we wrote for a limited amount of time was to really stay with the message of the body and not spend like an hour on each question where we might get into a lot of sort of stories about what we think it should be or any of that. We're really trying to stay with that freshness of the body. So as we move into our final session, what I invite you to do before you do that, whether that's going to be in like 5 minutes or 5 days, is just kind of check in. Notice how you're feeling, what your response is to the questions brought up for you. And if you have a couple more things to write down, you can. Otherwise, I just recommend that you let the answers percolate. Because we will circle back to it in the 3rd session. When we do our kind of closing ceremony, we're going to be checking back in, especially with whatever word or words came up for your intention. So don't worry, this is not your last time to engage with it. If you, again, are maintaining this sort of retreat workshop space in the course of an afternoon, go meet your bodily needs, drink some water, have a snack, whatever you need, and then we will meet back. Thank you for being here.